one, one, two, one, two. I hope you can hear me. I hope everything is good. Hello, everybody. This is Thomas, and as you can see, this is the first part of a very exciting series of webinars that we are going to see together, and is with respect to our project and production management tool in Impact. For those of you that don't know me, I have been using and implementing the software for almost 7 years now to many of our customers, and I have seen a lot of different ways of working with the precast process, and I'm very happy to be the host of this series of webinars that we're going to present in the following months, in these summery months of in here in Scandinavia at least, and hopefully after somebody can see those three parts. I have separated in three parts. I could have done it in two. A lot of times we do it in one part, but the whole point of this session is to actually do a training, do an online training together that I'm going to show you how you can start from zero, no model into the software, going all the way up to having a model into the software. And that, of course, follows the trainings in Revit that we had with Tessie, that she created basically a whole new model in Impact. Yes, these are my information. If you have any questions at the end of the webinar, I would completely appreciate it if you write me an email, and of course we can go through it together. I have not created an agenda today. I'm going to very roughly explain to you what we're going to see today. And what we're going to see today is what I call the very rough first planning of a project, of a precast project. We bid on a project in real life. What do we do? How do we represent that project in the software? And how we transition from a project that we bid on to an actually won project. So we will see that and how we transition in the system, how we can see, as you can see here, I have a nice graph here that we can actually see these workloads and capacities in our factory for maybe months or maybe years ahead, if that's how we work, and then also how we can rough plan the specific project now in reality when we're actually getting the elements into the system. Hopefully it will not take a crazy amount of time, but I want to be a little bit more technical. I want to explain to you a few things, and that's why it might take some time. So for the first part of this presentation, I'm going to show you a new tool we have not really shown you before. It's called Impact Tender, and it does this job here. I will explain exactly what it does. Again, I'm going to be a little bit technical, so I'm going to explain to you how it works, how it's set up, so you can do it and try it yourselves and see if it's a useful tool for you. For the second part of the training for today, for this presentation slash, I want to call it training, I will be following more or less the new training course that we have developed for you, and that can be found in our impact documentation. I have it right here. If you Google anywhere Strusoft Impact Wiki, you will get on top this page here. Many of you, especially our customers, know this. This is where we have a lot of information about all the software, and we have a lot of software in, especially in Impact. So basically, what you can see here in the end here, we have courses, and we have a course for Impact for Revit that it is under construction, almost there. We have a course Impact for AutoCAD, which is not really at all done. But what we have is a course called Impact Production, and that is completely finished. And if you read this introduction here, you can start the training. Everything is provided online. So if you have zero idea of what impact production is or how impact production works, with a simple mail to us or like a trial request, we can connect you to to our database that you will see now, our online and cloud database online, and you can actually follow this. You will get a project, you will get everything. Follow this plus this training that I'm going to show you now, and actually try it yourselves, everything that you will see in the next 3 webinars. So I just want to advertise it a little bit. It has been put a lot of work into it. If you are having no clue about impact, it might take a good 2 days to finish it, of course with breaks and stuff. If you know about impact and you have seen impact before and you have followed some of our webinars, then you can go through very nice and slowly and do your things and test a few things and see how things work and how you can adjust things in your way. I just want to name it that we have a new, I don't think we ever had production material, training material before. I have personally been involved in this project here, and I have done most of it myself, and I have put a lot of input and a lot of tips and a lot of tricks that I have learned through most of you, our customers, in the previous years. So I hope you can enjoy, and feel free to contact me if you have any problems with it. Now we are going to move to the actual software. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is what I already told you is called Impact Tender. I'll write here Tender. You need to install it from the Strusoft installer. And for the first time, I think, or maybe there has been mentioned before, but I will open for the first time in a long time at least, Impact Tender. And I will do my best to explain to you how Tender works. So let's start. When you open Impact Tender and you have not done any special settings, you will see that Impact Tender is separated into 3 tabs: the workload, the project quantities, and the settings. The first thing that we need to do is do the settings. The settings needs to be done once and then needs to be checked in the years to come compared to the capacities. First of all, a quick explanation of what we want to do. We want to see a rough workload of the elements that they are not in the system. In the previous years, when we wanted to rough plan elements or a lot of elements, you need to have the whole model ahead of time, and that's of course unrealistic. So here you can actually put quantities of element, only quantities of element, no real precast elements, and that will affect your capacity for the future, your tender capacity. And the tender capacity, or the rough capacity, then you can see it in a graph alongside your actual rough plan elements and the fine plan element and the elements that are already on your table. So those 3 different levels. So far in Resource Manager, we had the level of rough planned elements and fine planned elements. Now we're adding an extra layer to that, and that's the tender elements. The elements are not in the software, and we want to represent them somehow. And that's the workload graph we will end up at the end. There is a little bit of process in order to be able to work with it. So the first thing that we have to do is create a classification. And the classification means, how do I want to split my data? What is the reason that, what do I want to see on my graph basically? This is the question that this classification asks you. Do you want to see your graph per your element products, per your element groups, or per element types? The easiest way to do it, especially if you are using Impact Design, for example, is to do it per element type. For those of you who are not using Impact Design and you are bringing in elements from Excel, this is something we will see also in a short while. Or for those of you that you are bringing in elements from other software, then sometimes you use those 2 fields, the group and the product, that allows you to kind of put the elements under the same roof, if you allow me that expression. So in this case now, because for me it is way easier and it is easier to understand it. I will use the element type as the classification, but of course, if you are not using impact design, that means that you are only bringing linked elements in most of the times, and that means that you will have to use element product or element group. So think a little bit about how you want to group your elements. Is it all of your sandwich walls, or is it, do you want to have, for example, a more detailed splitting of elements, meaning that sandwich walls with holes, or sandwich walls with openings, or sandwich walls without openings, for example, sandwich walls with doors, sandwich walls with windows, sandwich walls with big holes or small holes. So this is the level that we're talking about. So if you already classify your products and your elements into different specific product types, then you can use the product of the group to classify the elements. The second part, the group classification, one parameter or two parameters, is basically your KPI, your identificator, your like initial value that drives your factory. Is that the area, square meters? Is that your volume, the cubic? Is that your mass, tonnage, kilos? This is where you decide if you want to have like this is what you say here with one parameter, that in the end we will figure out what is your KPI. If you select two parameters, then in theory you are adding the two parameters for every element type or for every element product. That means that except for the area, which is your key factor calculating holocore square meter, then you add also how many of holocores you have. So you can add pieces or element count as we call it here. In this case, to make the example very easy, so I will use one parameter, but I think you get the point. The second part, which I have already created, it's your production groups. So your production groups needs to match the corresponding classification in a sense. So here is you can create whatever you want. You can create a new production group. We can call it, for example, we can call it Thomas, and we can give it this parameter. As I said, your KPI should be area, should be length, should be mass, should be piece, volume, time, or cost. Everything is possible. In this case, I'm not going to do it. There is no point of me doing that. And that means that here, for example, in the beam and the column, I have added the parameter to be length. A lot of companies, they have the length as their KPI. The holocore, of course, is the area, and then something. Then we have the sandwich walls area, also slab area, stair pieces, wall and walls, and different type of walls. Again, this is a test database, it's not going to be perfect, and of course you cannot really delete things that you're using. So one person in my database is called walls, and another person create a new production group called it wall. That's also acceptable. So you create those one by one, you give them a name, and again, if you have a product that you call it WP01 and that affects your solid walls with windows on, then you should call this production group also WP01, so you know when you go to the mapping which name corresponds to which product. Important. The second thing you need to do is go to the capacity and put your weekly maximum capacity for this. Here you can see you have a start period and an end period. It is very easy. You see all of the headers here are blue, meaning that they are editable. So you can start from a period in time. Now it doesn't really matter because we're already ahead in time. We're already in May, almost May is over also, like we're almost in June, right? And then we go from a start period to an end period, and then you add a weekly capacity. The weekly capacity is of course in meters. So you say like I can create 150 meters of beam in a week in my factory, not a big factory, as you can see. But that's also like if we say a beam has an average of 3 meters, that's already 50 beams a week in a sense, which is not crazy. And then assign it to one factory. If you have multiple factories, like I have in my database, then you can create a new one and then find again the start date that you want to see. So I'll go to 2024, January, from the 1st of January, and then go all the way to May 25th, and say my weekly capacity for the smallest factory is 100, if that makes sense, and I will add this and say save. So now I have a capacity from week 6 to week 11, 150 meters of beam plus 100 meters of beam in my other factory. If you are not producing beams in the other factory, you do not have to add it. Again, a lot of possibilities. The more factories you have, the more things that you are juggling under the same roof, the more um, the more complicated you can make the tool, right? But I just want to show you that it is made for all type of companies, from a small factory to a company with like multiple factories. In the same way, we have done the column, we have added the holocore and the sandwich, and everything has a weekly capacity for a specific factory in our database called Strusoft factory for the time to come. The last part of the settings, and that's the last part, that you need to come here in the mapping and map your, again, I'll go back here and say element type. So the left column here shows you element type, element group, or element product. In this case, I have selected element type. The element type is here, and I have to match my element type with my production group: beam, column, holocore, wall, sandwich, slab, slab, and then I have some linked elements, and I map that as walls. You do that once, you don't have to do it again. The only thing you need to check once in a while, of course, if time passes by very fast and you have set your capacity by 2025 week 11 to be 150, you might need to come in again, create a new line, or edit this existing one and go further. If your capacity has not changed, go further to 100 to week 44, or and so on and so forth. If your capacity is changed, and this is something, here, for example, we had 100. Amazingly enough, our factory grew. We got some extra molds, so we can create a new capacity from week 20 to week, 50. That our new capacity in the factory for the whole 2026 also is 150 now for this factory called NOV1. And that means that we grow through 100 to 150. So production groups, mapping, and then we are good to go. That was the first part. There is only one thing I haven't shown you, and that's the minimum probability level. I cannot explain it to you before I show you how we create projects in here. So do the settings, try it yourselves. As far as I know, this requires a resource manager license. So if you are not using all of your resource manager licenses, or if you have the time to set it up by closing a resource manager down, then give it a try. The second part we need to set up is the project quantities. And I have already here a project that you can see, but I want to show you here from scratch how does it work. So I will create a new project here. I will select my standard, and I will call this webinar. And you can give it also a title, a description, and you can even create a project group. A project group can be housing projects, or port, or industrial projects, or different types of projects that you have. Then you can classify every project group that you are, every tendering project group that you are creating, and see the graph according to this bigger group of projects in your database. In this case, I'm not going to do that. There is no really reason to do that. I'll call this project webinar, and then maybe 01. You can give it a title and say like tender project for the webinar. I will say okay, and then I have a new project here. I mean, you peeped a little bit on what happens up here and what are the quantities and what is everything. So no further ado, how you create a project and how you add elements to it. You just add a new element here, and you just say, internal walls, as you saw before, and you you add a specific production group. In this case, I will add wall. The area comes automatically. You see it's also blocked out. And then the only thing I have to decide is how many of those do I have, how much area. So I have 8,000 square meters of wall. Then the color here, it can either go the same for the whole project, or you can create a specific color for a specific type of product. In my case, I decide here that I use a specific color per product. That means that I will know when I get internal walls on my housing projects, I will always use this color so I can have consistency in my graph, and I'll be able to see that properly in the graph. Then the calculation method and the probability. The probability is, of course, I'm bidding on a project. Of course, it's not 100% I'm getting the project, but in some cases I get, 70%. My feeling is 70%. In some other cases, my feeling is 90% or like 10%, because I know there are some competitors giving maybe better prices than I do. In this case here, you can add the probability of a product. Why there is a probability per product and not per whole project? That is because, of course, in some cases you get awarded only with the sandwich walls because you are the biggest provider of sandwich walls in the region, and some other people have also bid it for sandwich and holocore, and they got only the holocore, if that makes sense. So the probability goes per product, but usually here you keep the same probability. What you saw here in the settings is, of course, that the graph in the end can be shown with a minimum probability level of whatever is less than 75 can be filtered out, because I don't want to see in my graph things that are not coming in 100%. So sometimes I want to see my graph with everything, and sometimes I want to see my graph with the things that that are more sure to come, so I can bid on more projects and press my capacity to the absolute maximum. Anyways, I will say save here. I will explain the calculation method in a split second, but as you understand, I have a quantity and I need to split that quantity weekly. The software works weekly here. So when I have to split that quantity weekly, the calculation method means that I have put the start date of the project and the end date of the project, and that gives me a production capacity every week. So the software calculates the pace of production by itself. The different calculation methods can be you give it a start date, you give it a pace, and the software calculates the end date. You give it a pace and end date, the software automatically calculates the start date, and so on and so forth. Sometimes the pace and the end date, or the start and end date, is the best possible ways to calculate this in real life. There is also the manual option that gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. However, using the manual, making mistakes, splitting the quantity, the software will not warn you in a sense that, okay, the 8,000 are not splitted and you are used only 7,500 square meters instead. That will not, you will not get a warning when you split it manually. You will have to make sure that every week you have added all the capacities that you have to add, split it between your factories in a way that it gives you the 8,000 here. Now, very quickly, we will do the rest of the projects. I will add the sandwich walls also, and then I will add the production group to be the sandwich area again. I will put 5,000, and I will give it another color. That color can be the green, and I will continue adding more and put here the holocore. And again, this is just an example. This is basically a project that I already have in my software, but this is a project that in theory we are going to produce now. This is the project that we are going to produce in the following webinars also in real life, right? So now we're at the tender stage where we do not know if we got the project or not. I will just fix everything at once. Beams, and then I will add the beam, and now I will just add my pieces to be like 2,000 meter and 3,000 meter of of, and then I'll just select the colors. I will just keep the colors to be, you know, whatever. I have used the green, right? So I'll just take this. Nice. I'll say save. That's perfect. So now I have made my products. Now I'm going to split the paces. So I will start the new pace, and in every case, this I want all these things to start from the 1st of September, and I know that my deadline is the 1st, or let's say the 3rd of December, right? I will assign them to a factory, and I get a weekly pace of 534 square meters of wall. I have to produce that in theory, right? I have to do this, and also, do I have the capacity to do this? Let's see. The same for sandwich walls. I will do the new pace. I will just, again, you can do that, of course, way further in time. Now, for me, it doesn't make any sense to go so far away in time because this database doesn't produce really anything. So it doesn't make really any sense. I will just add a new page again and say here again, I know it's a little bit boring, but it is also important to see in real life how much time does it take for a person who knows to set this up, right? So let's say save and then add again, same, 1st of September, and then we go also 1st of December, assign a factory, save, and so on and so forth. You know, this is a technical webinar, and again, this is something that I really want to spend, you know, a little bit more time on. We're still 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, so I think we have plenty of time to do the rest of the jobs very quickly. Oh, yeah, that was not correct. So save, perfect. So now I have split my values. And what I was saying before is that actually I can change now. I have this value here, Holocaust. Let's take the Holocaust, right? And say like, okay, you know what? I'm going to change to manual. I'll save. So basically now I can, for these weeks, I can split the pace and I can have all my pace right here. So for those weeks. So now what I can do, let's say now I'm just giving you an idea here, is that like for the even weeks, I can just go and add them to another factory. So now very quickly you get a trick on how to assign, you know, to split 1 week to this factory, the other week to this factory, 1 week to this factory, the other week to this factory. Say save, and that's the issues. Of course, the software says that they are not exactly the quantities. Of course, you cannot derive it properly, but again, this is square meters. So if you are missing 5 or 10 or 50 square meters, this is the whole point of the software. The software is not detailed as having the actual design or the actual level of holocore that we have in a real project. This is just so we can make sure that our capacity is split properly in the system. So we have that, and we did our job here. The one thing I want to show you also is that like now you want to create a new project and a new project, and you want to bring in more things. So instead of creating a new project all the time, what can you do here? You can use this project, or you can have one project as a big template. So you can have all of your product groups here. You can create more and more and more. And then the only thing you just have to do, say open project. I'll find this webinar 01, hopefully somewhere here. I will copy this. I will copy this project and I will call it webinar 02, maybe. That's a project type preface. And again, I will it says you cannot copy files, of course, because there are no files in it, and the project has been successfully copied. And now I will just open the new project called Webinar 02. So when I open this, I get everything, same colors, same calculation method, same probabilities. Everything comes in with just 0 quantities. So now the only thing I have to do is, for example, this project, I do not have columns at all. So I will just delete this product. That's fine. I don't have beams. I will delete the product. and the only thing I have to do is fill out the quantities and split the bases out for this. So the moment that you have something going on for you, like I didn't have now, or I had, but of course I want to show you from scratch how it works, then you are actually pretty much going into it, and you can quickly see the different how like you can very quickly bring in projects in this tool. So when I have my projects, then I go and I go to my last step, of course, workload. You know me, I always like to split things in steps, and I just have to select the production group in order to be able to see what I have done. So I'll take my wall. Remember, I had my walls, and then I just need to select the project. Here is not I need to select the projects I need to have inside, if that makes sense. So I'll take this project, the webinar one, the one that we created, and I will just press refresh. Hopefully something will show. So now finally we'll see what is that we are working on. And what we're working on here is basically this. You have a capacity line that we have set for walls to be 300 square meters a week. In this specific project, with the pace that we have been given for production, that already goes to 534. Of course, my capacity now, it doesn't matter. I can go in and change it because I can. It doesn't really, I'll put 750 and just change it so I can just be more easy for you to read the graph, right? And that shows me what is this and this and this. That is of course my how do you call it? That's of course my fine plant and my rough plant elements. But what fine and rough plant elements? These are only the walls in the system. This is basically my fine and rough plant data for these weeks, what I'm producing in the factory, or what I'm going to produce in the factory, only for element type wall. So basically, when we added the production group here, we also split the data in the left side. So now if I go and, for example, add the sandwich wall also, then both the sandwich and the normal walls will show in the workload. So you see, everything is raised, and now the capacity is raised also because we took the capacity also for the sandwich wall, and then we get a new graph. Take away the wall, for example, refresh, we see only the sandwich walls in the system, if that makes sense. Exactly. Plus, of course, the fine plant sandwich walls coming in into our factories. Take away this factory, then again, of course, I guess the capacity is the same, but I think you get the point. There is a possibility here. There is a possibility here to combine, for example, elements like column and sandwich or wall and column. You will see here now the column is getting yellow. Why is it getting yellow? Because the column actually does not have the same production, doesn't have the same KPI, doesn't have the same production group parameter as the other two that you can combine. So if you want to combine elements together in the end, you need to make sure that the production group parameter is the same for those. If it's not the same, then you can select the length and then you can refresh the graph again very quickly and see what we have in column. And in column, we have this plus this. If I go to project quantities now and add, for example, for internal walls, I'll just very quickly add like 5,000 or something, right? And for the same period of time as before in another project, I will just add, let's go here to the 1st of September, and let's go, I'll just make it a little bit more tight. Go to, yeah, or maybe take it out to January. Assign it to Studio Factory 1, say save. So now from this project here, I can go to my workload, I'll take out the wall now and add the new project called Webinar 2, I guess. Yeah. Okay, I'll just, you know what? It is very easy. These things happen. I will just close tender and open it again. That'll be very, very easy to do. And this is not, this is just sometimes, you know, I think I was in the graph already. I was loading it. So I guess to get the new project, I think it needs to just sometimes to restart. I'm pretty sure that here is the project. That's fine with me. And I'll just say refresh. And you will see the new capacity coming from both projects. And you see here, if you keep consistency for internal walls is blue, now you can see the blue and the blue and how this exceeding. If you change the color, then it will not look so, let's say, pretty in the face, in the face. I mean in the graph, right? And also if in the project quantities you decide, you know, you in order to keep track of that, you can just have a template and move on from that. So this is the tender. This is the tender, right? And let's see now, because I created a project here, a tender project, and now I'll just move on to the project manager directly. And I have created a project here that, of course, we are going to. But before we go to this, okay, fully finished, the design is finished, the world is perfect project, I want to actually go to and find the other project, the project that I just created. So I will open and I will just write this project called webinar 1. Let's take this one and open it. What is the difference between a project like a tender project, or what I will show you now, it is called a pre-phase project, and a production project? So if I come to the properties, the project properties here, you will see that this project, has a type pre-phase. Most of the projects that, or all of the projects that you create in Impact, they usually production. When they are pre-phase, it doesn't really matter if I have elements in or if I have done anything here. The elements will not count against your fine on your rough planning. So when it is pre-phase, the only thing that counts is the elements that you have in tender. The moment that you are going to win the project, or you are going to get the project, you in theory come here, instead of creating a new project with the same name, because it's impossible, you keep the name, you keep the project, and the only thing you have to do is change the properties and change from pre-phase to production. That's fine. We go back. But when we are doing that in tender and we just refresh, the data from webinar 1 goes away. That means that there is not anymore in a pre-phase stage. Now we are going to move into actual elements coming in that are going to be rough planned, fine planned for the time being. And this is basically the transition between the fine and the rough plan. Now somebody will ask me, can we keep those elements? Can we do something to keep those elements? Yes, in theory you can, but the whole point is when you're actually getting design in, when you can actually design when it is a pre-phase project, that's fine. But when you actually start putting planning dates into the project, then that's where the point where you have to change into a production project. Otherwise, it will not count against your capacity. If I want to keep the project, which is not something I propose, maybe you can find a better way, then you can actually copy it, or when you're creating a tender project, you can always put a T in the name on the project number plus a T or something that we know it's a tender project, and then copy it in the project manager by again saying open, copy this, project, and then call it, something else, and then instead of a pre-phase, copy it as a production. And then you have both projects at the same time. But that, of course, as you understand, will show you a wrong workload, because then you can see here the split data, but you do not really know which project is coming from. But again, then you can play with the project groups and you create project groups for your different projects. But again, this is just suggestions. This is just things I have seen. And I can just tell you that, of course, there is a lot of ways of working, and the proposed one is the one I'm showing you. Of course, you can play with the project groups and actually, make project group for different projects, and then you can see only the specific project group, both the fine and the rough plan and the tender one. So you can actually keep also a little bit of a track of of your of your production. Remember, that will mean double capacity here. So we have to be careful. Anyways, now we're in the project manager. Now we're in a production project. Now we have come in, and now we're bringing in elements, real elements, because we need to plan. We need to do production planning, and for that, I have made a lot of videos. We have seen a lot of things, but now I'm gonna quickly show you all this from the rough plan. Now we're transitioning to the actual rough planning phase. How do we do that? First, I promise in the description, I'm going to bring in element marks with drawings. You create your building, you create your floors, you can make as many floors as you want, you can create as many buildings and floors as you want. This is all documented, this is all easy to do. And then you bring in your element marks. You say import a linked element mark, browse, and then find the template. You can find the template in Impact Wiki, you can find the template in the training, and import element marks, elements with drawings, and select the drawing folder. Hopefully this is going to work. I haven't tested it, so 225 elements with drawings are going to come in. These 225 elements basically represent our the elements that I have created in the system in tender. So now I'm having them as real elements here. And of course, this is where the rough planning. You see here, when I'm import linked elements, see, it's not a real model. It is just walls. The good thing is that I can import and open, for example, in PDF viewer, and hopefully a PDF is imported along with this wall. So hopefully, you never know. Let's see. Yes, and that's how a sandwich wall looks. Anyways, this is just an example drawing. You do not have to have this, but if you have created the drawings, if you have drawings, then you can put them in the system. Now, what is the process? So now I'm going to translate you this 3-floor building, let's say, into an actual building that we created into design. I think it's easier or a little bit more interesting do the rough planning into a building that how do you call it, that makes more sense doing it. It looks a little bit better than actually doing it here, right? So I will open the other project, and I will keep this project for further planning. Later on part 2, we will plan both this project and the other project that I have made. There is this project I made, the web production part 1. Let's open it up. And that project, I have already done some planning, because of course we do not have the time to plan all 3 floors. I'll bore you to death, and that's not what I want here. I want you to get some good tips and tricks, and also follow a little bit the training process with me. So we go from step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So the first step, rough plan again, repeating tender. Second step, changing to a production project. Third step, getting our elements in, or as much elements as we can get. Fourth step, start the actual planning process. And the planning process, the project planning process, has a lot of different options and a lot of different possibilities. So 3-floor building, let's say that the elements, the 300 elements that I brought before, are those 388 elements in this project. And floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, on the project browser here, every element has its own properties that you can see here, and in this case have been designed through Impact Design, and that's why it looks very beautiful and very pretty. So I have no element colors in the process, but I'm going to use that, and if I don't, please remind me to do it by the end of the webinar. So the first thing I'm going to do in this case, I will get the whole building and I will add a crane. How do we add cranes in the software? That's um, that's very important. The first thing you have to do is go to components and create a crane. Double click here. I have one. If I create a new one, you can give it a name. I always like to give my name when it is something, and then you just create basically a basic radius capacity and a specific color that shows you, how closer to the edge we're getting of like bringing the elements up. So it is a very simple one. If we investigate this one, so I don't have to create it again from scratch, we go to properties and you can see here for every radius, it brings up a different capacity. The longer the radius, of course, the less the capacity that it can pick up. So what we do now, in order to be able to do that, we can add a crane. So we select our crane here, say crane, crane stage 1 or something, crane 1 in the project, and we activate the crane in the faces and the floors of the building. Very important. And we pick an insertion point. So the first insertion point is here. Let's add it here. And the second insertion point, I guess there is no need for a second crane. This is a very big crane, so I will try to say OK. And the next thing we are going to do is general load check. So if the position I have selected here is correct, and I get the general load check, then all of the elements, except for the ones from this side that they are red, are going to be picked up by this crane. So what I can do now is like I can add another crane, and I can say crane position 2. And according to my crane capacity, I can activate again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pick an insertion point, and now pick the insertion point to be from behind. And in that case, I can perform another general load check, and hopefully that also will cover the elements from this. It didn't, so that means that the position of this crane was actually far away. So I need to bring it closer to what I did. So I can just delete it or something and create a new one, or I can move it. I don't know why I deleted it, but you understand the point. You can just create a new one and pick the insertion point and move it a little bit closer. So hopefully that, unless these slabs are already way too big, I can take the general load check by this crane. Yes, and now everything is green. The element color has changed up here, and that shows you the crane check. And this is how you can add cranes in the system. Again, a very detailed description of how to do that is in the software. I will just say delete here. I don't want to see them. You can hide them. I prefer to delete them because sometimes they just pop out when I refresh or when I reload, and I just want them to be gone for now for the purposes of the webinar. But you can also use the function hide, and that will be very enough for you. We go back to using no colors, and I will be honest with you, I have done already floor 2 and floor 3, so I will start by doing floor 1 from scratch. The next part, erection planning. Why erection planning is important? Because erection planning helps us from the project management perspective, show an initial way of producing the elements, of building the project. Building the project means delivering the elements, meaning that it will help a lot having a specific term on the things that we want to add. So floor 1, let's go to floor 1, sandwich wall. And how does it work? You have to activate your modules, erection planning and simulation. Go to home and let's plan. Start number 1. The rest of the numbers are actually taken, so I will start from number 1 and make sure I take all the elements needed for adding to erection sequence. Now a lot of you think that this is a step that we can skip, but I will tell you my personal opinion. This is a step that we always need to do if we want to be efficient. We spend a little bit more time in the software, but that helps a lot down the way. When we add that here, we have add elements. They get a new erection sequence number from 1 to 30. I can continue, of course, with the walls, but I just want to show you here that you can also add remarks or specific cranes from the database directly to, to these elements. I will continue with the walls and try to take the walls also. What you can see me do here with this line that coming out is that I'm pressing actually Shift and Control, and that allows me to mark the elements in a specific way, because when I add them on the software here, I add them by selection order because I want them to be added the erection sequence by the way I'm selecting them. If I select the element mark, I'm not always assured that the element mark is the correct way to go, because a lot of times that doesn't mean we mark them the same way we want to erect them. So I prefer to do it this way. Columns, beams, let's unhide and let's try to do this as efficient as possible. Add elements. Then we go to hollow core. Let's see if we can take them at once. Add elements, and then we take the pre-stress slab. Elements, and then we take the form slab. I think you see we have a little bit of every element here, so it makes sense for everybody, for people with different type of production, see a little bit of everything. Add elements and say apply. And then when we say apply, we are giving basically the new erection sequence number to our elements. That of course will take a little bit of time, as there are 129 128 elements. And now go back to building 1. I want to make a quick check. Have I added all the elements and erection sequence number? I can of course see it here in the element mark, and see here I'm missing 1. Let's see here, I'm missing 1. This one has not been given an erection sequence number, but I can also see it like that. I can come here and say status, sorry, not status, erection. And if I go to floor 1, oh, you see here, there is one element seemingly has not been given an erection sequence number. So what can I do now, right? As I said, if I go all to my model, my whole building, how can I change that? And I really didn't do that on purpose, to be honest with you, but that's a very good example of things I want to show you. So let's say that this element needs to get this erection sequence number 36. So it should be between this WP4 and W. So it should be the number 41, right? So now I can take from this one all the way down, select all the elements to the end, and right click all of these under the element ID tabs, because in the element ID tabs, every element is unique in the system. I mean, for those of you who know the system knows exactly what I mean. And then I can just say change direction sequence. And it says from range 41 to 370. I can just raise by 1. Say apply, save. And now I have a spot between 40 and 42 basically, that I can just add my element in a new erection sequence. This, of course, when you have so many elements, like 350, it's not so many, of course, but it is a good amount, so you understand that that takes a little bit of time to change everything. So hopefully when I go back and see here, when I go and see, I have 40 and then 42. What do? Find this one, double click on it, 41, save, and the element is got a new erection sequence number. Very important, and you know now how you can actually see these things. I go back to floor 1 and see now that there is an erection sequence on this element. When I get the erection sequence, I find it very important for a lot of people. I have had the erection sequence, as I said, for second and third floor. I found it very important, and a lot of people do the same, to actually simulate the the erection sequence. And of course, I have used already 50 something minutes, so I would like to do it very quickly. I will show, and I will start showing you very quickly how the project looks and how it is, the erection sequence goes. And you can see very quickly everything is being simulated. You can take a video of that, you can take a screenshot recording, and you can send that to the partners that you are working with. I am very sure, because I have seen it myself, they are very, very impressed every single time that this happens. Yes. So I stopped it now because there is no really reason to go back and do that. I think you get the point, and I don't want to spend a lot more time of your time. So now we have the action sequence, and the next part, of course, is add the plant dates. When we have the plant dates and we assign them to a specific factory, then what do we have? We have what we call the rough plant elements. So when I go back to tender, in theory, when I give them dates and assign them to a specific factory, then those elements will show here, hopefully as rough plant elements, especially the wall ones, if that makes sense. So let's see if we can assign some of the walls in these weeks and see if you know, the rough plan elements will show in the system. So let's go and add the element IDs again. You select this grid preset for rough planning, and that gives me the information that I want only for the dates. I start from erection sequence, and then, as we knew, the project starts, plant erection date starts from for the sandwich walls planning, set date, and that should be the beginning of September. I will say the 3rd of September in real planning time. I continue with the rest of my sandwich walls according to the erection sequence again. See, that makes my life very easy. Planning, set date, let's say 2 days after, apply, and let's take also the solid walls at the same time. Planning, set date, I'll just move a little bit further, apply. And then I will just finish with this. Set date. I'll say save. I'll say save half the way because I want all the dates, all the dependencies to be fulfilled. And this is very important also, that every project has its own dependencies. And if we have project managers or people and we want to be conservative, when we get an erection date or a delivery date, then we can preset this information per project. Where can we set this information from? We can go to the properties and see that in the planning, we have used rough planning dependencies, yes, and then for every element type, we can use from erection date calculating back to get all the way to the drawing date. These are minus a working day, basically. So if you look at it from the third, I want to have the plan drawing date or the plan production date from this period and so on and so forth. So yes, this is basically how it's looking. We can continue with the rest of the elements. I'll just go very quickly now and try to set some dates. These dates are going to be very important for the next webinar. I have already preset all the dates in a sense, but for the rest of the project, and I will do the one that I imported today for next time. Planning, set date. I'll just put the date to be the 17th, apply, and then I will continue to the rest of the slabs, and that will be here, almost stopping here, and that gives me a planning of a set date. Like that gives me a week of stoppage before I start the next one. next floor, and say save, and that basically shows me again all the dates need to be fulfilled, around 70, 80 elements here. I need to get 1, 2, 3, 4 extra dates, and that's how it works. Back to the model view. From erection, I'm going to select this one called rough planning. And now I just want to check if all of my elements have a rough planning. Another thing that you can rough plan, I will select only floor 1. So we filter here floor 1. I will also add a specific factory for these elements. So I will just right click, set planning, set production factory, and assign extrusion factory 1, say apply. And again, this is the perfect size project to show you in real life how much time it takes for, so I don't spend a lot of your time, but also you understand how much time it takes to do this thing. So now all of my elements, every element has like rough planning, has erection, and is assigned to a factory. So this is my whole building 1, and everything is rough planned and ready to go. The last part I want to show you, now that we have the dates, and the dates spread again in real life from the 1st of or the 2nd of September, all the way to November, December, as we did. What I want to show you the last part for 3-4 minutes is the new follow-up tab. So now that we have data in the system, now I would like to create filters that will show to me how I can use all this plant data that I have. Here I have already created a filter. I will just manage my filter, and I will just delete it and create it again from scratch. Yes, so I will just close it. So you can just, okay, I didn't delete it apparently. Okay, I did. So let's start again. Let's call this filter. The PPD means like plan production date, but let's say plan production date 1. And then you can either make a personal or a shared one. I have also made a very nice video about it. No special characters allowed clearly. So don't add special characters like I did. And then you can select different projects that you want to combine. So if you have a project that is split up in 5 different sub-projects, then that's where you can add it. In this case, I have this web production one, and of course I have made this webinar 01 also, which has no data at the moment, but it will get data for the next time. The next thing I want to see is either the factory or the element type, and I will just go for all element types. Want to see all element types, all factories. And here I create my activities. What is the activity I want here? Plan production date. So I will take away all the rest of the activities, and I want to see the plan production dates. Here I can also have things that are ready for production, or split them into different statuses. Basically, this is a status splitter. And here is what I want to sort my graph to be shown as. I want to sort by element type, and that's fairly it. And then maybe I want to see floor in my projects. When I say OK, so now I have a new filter, and I just need to make sure that the starting date is not September of 2021, but most likely it is August or something of 2024, and the end date is where I have the end of my project. So here you can see, if I open up the project in a Gantt chart, every element type and where I'm going to produce. And from out there, every element type, I have the different floors. So the sandwich floor 1 are going to be made in week 35, as we call it here in Scandinavia, and then week 39, and then week 42. The same will go for wall, floor 1, floor 2. So basically you have a very structured data of all of your planning. All the things that you might gotten from MS projects or something, you get them also here, that you can actually see where I am. And the moment that the elements are following the status, the moment that some of the elements are like set to ready for production, then this color will also change um, in the during the process. And in the end, when you want, you can create also custom activities. Doesn't have to be only element types or floors. You can add cranes, you can add more things, or you can also compare things with, now of course it's two projects, so you cannot, but when you have only one project, you can use this compare button and try and compare what stage we were on the 20 or the 30th of May and what stage we were when it's the yeah when it's the 30th of August in the project. So this is very important. And last thing I want to say here is you can actually export this to MS Project. This is the button that exports this to MS Project. I do not have MS Project, but I would really love to see um, you know the data in an actual project management and project planning tool, and this helps a lot. Again, this is for today. We exceeded the hour. That was really not my plan, but I'm very happy we did. I think I covered a lot of points. I went from the tender planning all the way to the rough planning and showing you a little bit of data. Give tender a try. Try to see how it looks, um, and I am pretty sure you will be very happy with it. It is really nice. Um, you can see here there are some rough planning elements. They are too little to be able to see the rough planned elements here underneath also. So make sure to make bigger quantities, and you will be able to see that. So that is for today. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a month with part two, and then of course after the industry vacation, we'll go with part three. I think it's in August. But yeah, participate, or if you're seeing it not live later on, thank you so much. Follow and try to use the course, the production course. It is very useful, and I hope you can you have some good feedback to it. And I'm very happy if you send me a mail or give me a call to see these things together. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye.